Good afternoon, guys. It's Working, bringing you a quick update on Bitcoin. Hope you guys are having a wonderful afternoon. We're looking at Bitcoin, a US dollar, 4-hour chart on Coinbase. And last time we spoke, guys, Bitcoin was sitting right in here, I believe trading around 10,350-ish, somewhere thereabouts, guys. I told you to watch for that break below this prior wick here, which was at about 10,100. Told you when that did happen, we were going to likely come down here and test this 9,950, which I realize is not much of a call. $150 call, brilliant. I get it. Not much of a call at all. But the reason I wasn't comfortable calling anything below that yet is because, as I told you guys, we're very likely going to get this zone is to be respected at 9,950. It's to be respected for numerous reasons. It's a visual support. It's a psychological support right around 10,000. It's also that if we go swing low, swing high, as pointed out numerous times in the past, but we'll just throw it on here real quick. We can see it's literally sitting almost to the dollar right there at the golden pocket, right there at the 618, between the 618 and the 65 fib level. It actually is at the golden ratio at the 618. So this is to be respected. That being said, yes, guys, we have now officially had the 4-hour death cross, 4-hour exponential death cross, I should say. We've already had the simple a few days ago. It is now confirmed on the 4-hour. So how much weight am I actually putting on this, guys, until we do break down not just this 9, as I told you yesterday, it's not just 9,950 that I'm going to be watching. And I am watching this zone, guys, but I'm going to be watching this larger ascending support line here that has been intact basically since May. And this is the area that I really want to see if it breaks below. If it breaks below this area, then of course, yes, could we get held up by 9,400 again? Could that be our saving grace? It's possible, but again, as I told you last time, I do think if 9,400 gets tested a second time, you know, I have my doubts as to whether or not that holds, guys. I would say, I mean, if I had to put it into percentage, if you put a gun to my head, I'd say probably 65% chance that does break down. And then that puts us down here to to 8,900 to 8,500 very, 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 very quickly if that does break down. So I'm gonna be watching this ascending support line. Somebody did ask, you know, are you looking for a 4-hour or a daily below this ascending support line? Really probably would be looking for probably a 4-hour open and close below that. But this is really, really difficult to trade. I'm saying it's difficult to trade because right below this line, of course, we do have a known support at 9,400. And yes, there is a possibility that that does hold up. So if you're targeting 8,900 right away, again, I would just make sure, again, this is not financial advice, not a financial advisor, but if that does break down, if you are looking to go short and you're looking at 8,900 as a target, 8,900 to 8,500 as a target, I would be very, very careful. I would have a pretty tight stop, and I would, in this case, when it does break down, I would very likely, if you're at your computer or if you do have some software, to kind of have a trailing stop loss. I know that's a controversial thing. Some people like it, some people don't. It's certainly, if you're not at your computer to trade, and it sounds counterproductive. Either you're a trader or you're not a trader. If you're a trader, you should be at your computer trading. But realistically, and not everybody can do that. So that being said, if you do want to set it up to where you can get away from your computer and still have that trailing stop loss and know that you're going to stay in profit, you know, that is a nice feature to have. So anyway, I digress. I could go back on 1,000 rabbit trails. So bottom line is where we are now, guys. We're looking at this 9,950. We're going to see if this does hold. If we get a decisive break below this, I do think the next stop is going to be, as I said yesterday, the ascending support line, which is going to be somewhere between about 96 and 9,700-ish, depending on if and when this thing does end up breaking out and where it breaks down. Zooming out a little bit zooming in a little bit on the 4-hour here. If I go swing low, swing high of this latest microstructure here, we can see that, let me get right on there. We can see that we are dancing right on top of the 618 fib, right on top of that golden ratio, guys. So, you know, this does make sense as a nice area of resistance. We can also see it was support. We can see it was visual resistance back in here on July the 17th and 18th. We can also see that it was visual support back here on July the 15th. So report turned into resistance, turning back into support. Definitely a very, very relevant zone without question, as we're seeing here. However, this would suggest, just this fib would suggest, if this does break down, that again, we are seeing some confluence with that ascending support line and potentially the next fib level, which would be right around the 786. Yes, it'd be a little bit below that, guys, but close enough. We can see it wicking below there, possibly finding support, possibly looking for a bounce. That said, I would not be, if you're looking for a long-term hold, I would not look for and again, this is not financial advice, you do what you want. Personally, I'm not going to be looking to add to my long-term hold bouncing off of this zone and just holding out. I might try to scalp off this zone again somewhere around 95, 96, 9700-ish if it does break down, especially if you're trying to trade on leverage. But I'd be looking for a scalp bouncing off this zone, targeting about 99 to 99.50-ish, getting out very, very quickly. I would not be looking at this as a swing trade, or certainly not as an entry for a long-term hold. Well, actually, I take that back. If you're long-term hold, anywhere you dollar cost average into, really any one of these points, I do believe in the long term is going to be a good call. Again, that's just my personal opinion, but I do think that we have the potential to get a better price if you're looking for a long-term hold here, depending on how we get, what kind of resolution we get. That being said, with the death cross on the 4-hour, bias would start to lean to the downside here. Again, as I told you yesterday, I'm not going to be too convinced until this ascending support line does break down. To the upside, of course, we're watching the same thing. We can see 10,650, as discussed yesterday, is a relevant zone. If we can get back above that zone somehow, if we can get a nice bounce and we get a 4-hour open and close above 10,650, guys, that is very much going to get my attention. Now, of course, I'm not going to be all in bullish. In fact, I'm not even going to be all in bullish if we break above 11,050, although my bias will certainly shift, at least in the short term, will certainly shift in favor of the bulls. I'll be looking at least 11,500, if not 12,000, probably more like 12,000. But we've really got to get above 12,400 before we can say, if I zoom back out to the daily here, before we can say that we're breaking out of this overall area of consolidation here. So again, just kind of a point of reference, guys. We're very, very different things when we're talking about, the macro level versus the micro level and all the little levels in between there. Whether you're swing, trading, scalping, or holding for the long term, very, very different strategies, guys. So I want to make sure I'm very, very clear on what I'm talking about here. So as of right now, we're at a major pivot, as I discussed, guys. Zooming out here on the daily, it's very, very clear. This was support back here, support turned into resistance, turning back into support. We break below this zone and we don't get a massive bounce. In other words, we break below, we get a retest, and that support starts turning into resistance again. I'm immediately going to be looking at 9,400. If that does happen, guys, immediately looking at 9,400, of course, with a bias down here at 8,900 to 8,500. I do still believe, even though everybody is looking at this zone, even though nobody thinks that it's going to bounce there because they think that everybody thinks it's going to bounce there, guys, I'm not convinced. I will be adding to my long-term position between 89 and 8,500, as I have said numerous times. Now, zooming in on the daily RSI is actually suggesting a continuation to the downside here. We could see, looking right here, we could see this has kind of been, since we've been in this bull run, this area, actually going all the way back here, this area has kind of been a major area of support for Bitcoin. On the daily RSI, guys, every time we've come back down here, it's found support and bounced right back up. We finally broke below that zone here, and what got my attention is when we tried to break back above it twice now, actually 3 times to be fair, we've been rejected. And now we've broken back down that zone, back down out of that zone to the downside here. So this would suggest potentially continuing back down a little bit further here before we get some resolution. And we also do, if we look at this trend line right here, we can see that we are creating kind of a descending support, an area of descending support here, which again would suggest potentially retesting this zone. Now, it certainly doesn't have to, but this is kind of the trend that we're seeing as of right now, would suggest possible continuation to the downside. However, looking at the weekly here, weekly is a little bit more interesting. We can see on the weekly chart here, guys, that in the bear market, this area right here at about 53-ish was an area of resistance here in the past. And if I could go back, if I was on Bitstamp, you'd be able to see it a lot better. I'm a little too lazy to switch over right now, but this area was an area of resistance on the weekly. And then, of course, when we broke back of it on October the 15th, that started acting as support. And this area right around 53-ish on the weekly acted as support all throughout the bull market until we finally broke back down out of it at the start of the bear market in January of 2018. And then what was support turned into resistance, resistance, resistance. Of course, we broke back up above it here. Price came back down, didn't even test it, just kind of went off. So my point in showing you the weekly is here, we are still very, very, very bullish. Even though in the short term we may be seeing a larger correction, in the long term, it's not until we break below about this 53 area that I would start to get longer term macro bullish here. And you can see that we've got a lot of room to fall. Now, in the short term, you could take that as potentially bearish. In the long term, though, the macro level, it should give you some peace in knowing that the macro trend is very much intact. Another interesting point of fact, again, looking at the weekly here, weekly RSI, we can see looking point to point here, price obviously created, let me get right at the bottom, price has obviously created a higher low, clearly. And of course, price could drop down here further here and still not take out this prior low. We'd have to, we'd have to drop quite a bit before we'd say price created a lower low in relation to this price action back here on June back in mid-June. Now, if I look at the same exact point on the RSI here, we can see the RSI is basically, actually, technically, is now creating a lower low. Now, of course, this being an overall macro uptrend, we're seeing that the RSI is creating a lower low, even though price is creating a higher low. And even if price does drop, I mean, price would have to drop to down below about 7,600 before it would create a lower low. So what my point in all this is, you can see on the RSI here, if assuming price does drop here, let's say it drops a little further, RSI does continue down, we're going to be showing some serious hidden bullish divergence here. And it's already starting to show it here, but some serious hidden bullish divergence. So my point in all that is the chart would suggest that even if we do get price coming back down here and dropping significantly, it would suggest that we would get a fairly significant bounce somewhere off of that zone. It could be literally anywhere between its current price point and, as low as 7,600, as pointed out on the chart here. But somewhere it's going to get a massive reversal. Again, just based on this. This is not, nothing is a definite in crypto, but just based on looking at the chart here, it is going to be showing some pretty massive hidden bullish divergence, and does suggest that this thing, depending on how low it goes, and regardless of how low it goes, and again, until it goes below 7,600, and then we're in trouble. But anything above that does suggest that at some point price is going to get shot up fairly quickly. It's going to get bought up, and it's going to continue to the upside fairly quickly. So again, the overall macro trend does look to be pretty solidly intact. All right, checking moving averages, we can see the and exponential moving averages. To be clear, guys, I know I sometimes don't say that, and I don't mean to cause any confusion. So looking at our moving averages and exponential moving averages, we can see that we are now. This is on the 4-hour chart. Of course, we did discuss the 821 and 55 all converging with the Bollinger Bands bottlenecking here. What's suggesting a larger move? We are seeing a move to the downside here. Is this the larger move to come? Well, we're not really breaking down. I really would. This has still not yet broken down on a whole lot of overall volume. I mean, you can just see it here. Once it breaks down a volume, you're going to see the Bollinger Bands here just stretch, and it's going to be trading outside the Bollinger Bands here. That's going to be a massive breakdown on volume, and we're not seeing anything anywhere close to that yet. In fact, if I come out here, let me just check overall daily volume. Overall daily volume still sitting at about 17.5 billion. That is, what did we close at yesterday? I mean, that is not a breakout in volume whatsoever. In fact, yeah, we are still trending down from we were at on the 18th. We were at 25,000, 25 billion, 20.7 billion, 20.2 billion, 17.1 billion. Yesterday's was 16.3 billion. We'll see where today's closes. It may be below. We're currently overall in the 24-hour period 17.5. We'll see where that actually closes. Maybe below that 16.3. But the point is, volume is still basically just stagnant, just flat. People are not convinced by this move at all. It basically, we've seen head fakes in either direction, guys, and retail is not falling for it. So this market is still very, very much on edge. So this is why I'm not taking, I'm not telling, even though we've had a death cross on both the simple and exponential, I'm not putting a lot of weight in that until, again, we break outside of this larger ascending support line. As long as this is intact, guys, and even then, as I talked about, guys, it's going to be very, 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 very difficult, because yes, we break down below 9,400, yes, very likely dropping to 8,900, but after that, we've got all kinds of support between 8,900 all the way down to and including 8,500, and even below that, we've got major support at 8,250. I can make a very good argument for 7,800 as well. Of course, 75. I mean, so it is going to be difficult. It truly, truly, truly is. And I mean, until we start trending back to the upside and we can start picking targets to the upside, trying to it is going to be a very difficult, unless you are very, very skilled at scalping. It is going to be very, very difficult to try to short this market on the way down. Now, you might do it and you might get lucky, but just from a technical point of view, again, unless you're playing the very small time frames and you're very comfortable doing that, as far as anything I can tell you, it's going to be very, very difficult. All right, so coming back, looking at the daily. Daily is finding support on top of the 55-day EMA as of right now. Again, nothing. We are still basically trading a range. We still haven't had a decisive break below the 50 simple here. We did have a bearish 8-day EMA crossing below the 21. I think I pointed that out a few days ago, which again was a bearish sign. We'll have to wait and see. We are getting a little bit of light now between the 8 and the 21-day EMA, which again is a bearish sign. Let's wait and see kind of how this plays out. But as of right now, all is not lost. We are still we can see very, very clear what was support, was resistance, turning back into support now. And until that support is taken out, again, guys, it's and until it's taken out on some very serious volume, I really have trouble picking targets to the downside, at least from a trading perspective, especially given looking out here on the weekly. I mean, as I've been telling you, the weekly chart is the most bullish thing that Bitcoin has going for it right now. We are still bulls are still vigorously defending that 8-week EMA here, guys. And traditionally, the 8-week EMA, as I've discussed earlier, the 8-week EMA is a very, very relevant zone depending on whether or not you're in a bull or bear market. Assuming we are in a bull market now, we broke above this 8-week EMA and have not decisively broken below it. By decisively, I mean a weekly open and close. We have not decisively broken. In fact, I don't even think we've closed below it since breaking up above it on, when did we break up above it? On, what was that? In February, the end of February. Yeah, we haven't. We haven't closed. Actually, I take that back. No, I don't. We have not closed below the 8-week EMA since breaking above it and at the end of February there. So it would be. My point in all this is now that we are in a bull market, this becomes very relevant, and I would actually like to see a close below the 8-week EMA for different reasons. Of course, short term, to be bullish short term, of course, yes, I'd like to see this thing hold and we just continue up to the moon. But as I've been telling you, I would like to see us drop down to that mid 8,500 area to fill that CME gap, as well as for all the other technical reasons that are calling for a drop back to 8,500 eventually. Doesn't mean it has to happen now, but eventually I'd like to have that taken out. Now, if we do get that close on the weekly below the 8-week EMA, that would typically signal a potential bottom is very, very, very close, and an explosion back to the upside is very likely going to come. Why do I say that? Because in a bull market, a close below the 8-week EMA is very often a signal of a bottom of a correction in a bull market, and continuation back to the upside. The same way in a bear market, the close to the, in fact, I'm just go ahead and show this to you. So when we were in a bear market, we can see the 8-week EMA was acting as massive resistance here, right? And it wasn't until we really decisively broke up above it, and then had a couple weeks of staying above it, that we said, hey man, maybe we are in a bull market now. Maybe things are shifting around. But we can see on each correction here, when during the bear market here, when price broke up above, like for example, this week back in August the 27th, when price broke up above the 8-week EMA and then closed above it, that signaled the top, and then the trend, the bearish trend, continued back down to the downside. We saw the same thing on July the 23rd. That signaled the top, and then continued. Once we had that close up above, and to be fair, in this case, we actually had an open and close. We actually closed above it here, and then had continuation here. But at the very, very least, either an open and close or a close can signal the end of that correction of the trend. So in this case, it would be the end of correcting back to the upside, and then continuation with the bearish trend back down to the downside. We saw a similar thing here. We had, again, that open and close up above that 8-week EMA, and then continuation to the downside. Of course, we saw the same thing here, looking for that. Finally, we had that close above the 8-week EMA, and then continuation to the downside. It doesn't always happen right away. We can see that it's a very good indication of approximately where the end of that correction is, right above that 8-week EMA, once we were solidly in the bear market. And that is also true for the bull market. So once we were going back to 2017, once we were in an overall uptrend, we can see once price came back, and it's not 100%, it's just one indication. So we can see when price actually decisively broke below the 8-week EMA here, and then actually had the open and close here, continued to the upside. Now sometimes it's just a close below, sometimes it's both an open and close below, sometimes it takes a week, sometimes it takes 2 weeks, even 3 weeks, but that's the general area that we can see where that correction ends, and then continuation to the upside. We saw the same thing here. We had the close below the 8-week EMA, and then continuation to the upside. We saw it right here, close below the 8-week EMA, and then continuation to the upside. So that 8-week EMA is an extremely relevant zone, guys, and this is why I'm saying, of course, in the short term, I'd like to see this hold. I'd like to see the bulls fight this off. I'd like to see continuation to the upside, just short term. But selfishly, because I'm a long-term holder of Bitcoin, I would like to see price come back down, actually close below the 8-week EMA, fill that $8,500 gap. That would be historically the signal of the end of the correction and then continuation of the overall, since we're in a bullish trend, the overall trend, which in this case is bullish. If that's making, and I feel like I'm not explaining myself correctly, but you guys are smart. You know what I mean. So yes, I would like to see us break below this. I would like to see us take out 8,500 and continue to the upside. With that being said, Bitcoin does not care what I think, doesn't care about my feelings, and as of right now, the bulls are fighting like hell, and they are defending that 8-week EMA. So again, this is why I'm not comfortable picking targets here to the downside yet, at least not trading it to the downside yet, because we are still seeing a lot of strength in this market. That being said, if we do get a decisive break below the 8-week EMA, we can see that the next logical conclusion would be a drop down to approximately the 21-day EMA, which would be around 8,200-ish. And we could coincidentally or not so coincidentally, we can see that, of course, that lines up very, very nicely with our prior area of consolidation right here, which AKA should be support. And of course, we know we have the CME gap. We know we have 8,500 is that logical area, that logical target for so many reasons that we've pointed out in the past that I'm not going to bore you with again. All right, quickly checking longs and shorts. We can see shorts are flat. Looking at longs, we can see longs also basically just flat, also confirming that everybody is just sitting back and waiting, and nobody is falling for the bait that we're seeing. The quick spikes up, the quick spikes down. Nobody's falling for it. Everybody's waiting for a major break out of this consolidation pattern to either go short or go long again. So how am I playing this, guys, to kind of try to wrap Bitcoin up in a bow? How am I playing this? I'm basically going to very likely be scalping, but I'll be honest with you guys. I'm really not interested in any big positions right now. Yes, I'll do my typical very small scalp trades here and there. And if you're trading very small time frames, I know I've had some people asking me about the smaller time frames. And again, it's just usually completely irrelevant by the time I get this up. But I mean, as of right now, if I were trading a smaller time frame, let's just look up here. Do we have anything interesting here? I mean, it looks, yeah. I mean, if it does come back down here and test about 99.50-ish, we do bounce back in there. And again, if you're trading on massive leverage, yes, it does look like, actually it's actually already played out. I was going to say we do have a little bit of bullish divergence there on the 1 hour MACD. On the 1 hour MACD, a little bit of bullish divergence, which would suggest a rise back up to about 10,100. But again, now that I'm looking at that, it did kind of already spike up there. So you could already make that, you could actually make that argument that that's already played out. Yeah, I mean, this is a tough range to play, man. This really is a tough range to play, unless you're really playing the smaller time frames, which I'm not even going to get there because I think it's irresponsible if I do. And again, that would require some serious one-on-one counseling counseling. It actually probably would be counseling, training to. I don't even want to go there because I feel it'd be irresponsible. So yeah, I mean, right now, guys, for the most part, for our purposes, yes, I'm basically sitting around, hands off, very small scalps here and there, but just waiting for a good setup. Patiently waiting for that 85 to 8,900 if and when it does come, or patiently waiting for price to get back above 11,050, where I'll feel more comfortable picking targets to the upside, 11,500, 11,400, or 12,400, and of course it's 12,400 that I do think we need to get above to get us out of this zone. If and when we get a decisive break above 11,400, I will start to get extremely bullish. If and when we get a decisive break below 9,400, I can't even say I'll get extremely bearish because, again, as I said, we've got a lot of layers of support down below here, guys, but you guys know the zone I'm watching between 89 and 8,500. And I know that's not what you guys want want to hear. I know you want to hear Bitcoin's going up, Bitcoin's going down, 10,000 is going to hold, 10,000 is going to break. I know that's what you want to hear. That's not how trading works, and there are plenty of channels that'll tell you how to do that if that is what you're looking for. As I said, that Bitcoin did just have a little bit of a spike there. So. And just for my own purposes, guys, please, this is not financial. I'll just do this because I know I'm just curious about something very quickly. Pulling in on the hourly, I'm just curious if this works as a potential. Yeah, man, yeah, it actually kind of does. Wow, yeah. No, not wow, but yeah. So I mean, if it does end up breaking down, yes, this would suggest possibly coming back down, hitting, finding support, even actually above this line. Actually, it would suggest finding support about that 9,700-ish area, 9,750-ish, and then breaking back to the upside here with the target of about 10,000. 10,100. It would suggest that here. Suggest a very, very micro falling wedge there. But again, guys, that is a very, very sloppy one. Might I play that? I'm not even going to say whether I will or not because it's just it is a point of interest. But I would not suggest doing it. But again, I'm not a financial advisor. Not financial advice. You guys do what you want to do. I'm going to go ahead and start wrapping Bitcoin there. Let me quickly get to your questions, and then I got to run. And I feel like I'm all over the place, guys. I apologize for that. Let's see. Joe says, reminiscent of a stock operator book. Jesse Livermore, look up reviews on Amazon. Yeah, I know the book you're talking about. Actually, I think I read that years. In fact, that's an old book. I mean, I think that was written back. Man, I mean, that was written in the 50s, I think, if I'm not mistaken. I think if it's the book I'm thinking of. Kevin Roberts says, bought at the 50 fib so far, like all my other trades that failed. You bought it so far so good, like all that you bought at the 50 fib. Are you talking about what 50 fib are you talking about? Are you talking about this this level here? So you bought at about 10,100. And if that's what you're talking about, man, I hope you sold on the bounce there when it did bounce, man. Anyway, not sure what you're talking about, Kev, but I do wish you the best of luck, man, and I appreciate you always stopping by. Oscar Guzman says, please don't change anything that you do in this channel. Hey, thanks, Oscar. I appreciate that, man. Jamie says, hey, Workin, thanks for your informative videos. They are often spot on. I wonder if you could do a video or touch on indicators you use. I'm struggling to find the EMA, SMA, MA, and indicators that you use. Well, I'm pretty transparent with what I use. I mean, I'm a very old school trader, man. I really am. I mean, nothing too fancy at all. Basically, you can see it here. I've got the 821, 55-day EMA. As far as the simple, I've got the 50 and 200 simple, and every now and then, of course, I do reference, as we've been discussing, the 50 and 200 exponential. But as far as those are concerned, those are the majority of the ones that I use, at least for my strategies. And other than that, it's just basic support, resistance. Sometimes using the MACD, a lot of times using the RSI, basic support and resistance, and of course sometimes pattern trading, and of course always volume. But other than that, man, really nothing too fancy. I find I used to, man, if you would have known me back when I you kind of go as a trader, you go through phases. You go through the phase of I don't know what I'm talking about. Then you learn a few things and you start to think you're a genius. And so then you go through the phase of my gosh, I'm a genius. I've got this in no time. Then you get humbled very, very quickly in the market, and you realize even though you might understand the technicals, you have no idea how to actually trade. And then you get really, really humbled, and you go back further, and you have less confidence than you did when you started and knew nothing. And then usually you build off of that. So it usually takes it's a very, very long process. Why am I bringing that up? Actually, I'm bringing that up to say, if you would have known me years ago when I thought I knew everything, I used every indicator in the book, man, every indicator in the book, until I finally realized that, and basic fib extensions and regular fib levels. I also use those oftentimes. But until you realize it comes down to just very basic things like fib levels, support and resistance, and moving averages. I mean, until you realize it really is that simple and can be that simple, it'll be a real eye opener. Until then, everybody using Elliott Wave and all this other stuff, I just, and not that it doesn't have its place, and I don't mean to, if you have a successful method, by all means, man, use it. Jay Singer says, hey, Working, can you give your thoughts on the 3-day chart in about a few days? The 50 and 200 moving average potential gold cross is coming. Yeah, I mean, I've looked at that, and it might be. I think we're getting a little bit crazy with these golden crosses. I mean, yes, on the 3-day, would it be bullish if it did happen? Yeah, I mean, it would be bullish, but I mean, yeah, I mean, it would be bullish, but I mean, is it going to mean we're going up to all time? I mean, is it going to really change the overall bullish posture that we're already in? I mean, yeah, it would be one more thing indicating a more bullish market, but I'm not going to put, it's not like I'm going to put as soon as that happens, I'm going to start picking, start buying up Bitcoin any more than I am now. It's really not going to change my strategy too much at all. I mean, of course, it would be a bullish thing, yes, but it's how would it change my strategy much? No, not really. Angelina stopping by again. Thank you. Good to see you. Let's see. Black Hole says, great work. Nice, nice and clear. Thank you, sir. JH says, or ma'am, I'm not sure if to be fair. Thank you. Let's just say that. JH says, thanks, Working. You rock. How do you draw your yellow trend lines, wicks, 4-hour closes, or other closes, or just eyeballing? Are you looking for a daily 4-hour close below this trend line? Yeah, it's a good question, and I did answer your question. And really, drawing trend lines can be sometimes. I mean, it is technical, obviously, but it's also a lot of times more of an art. I mean, with this trend line, for example, I'm anchoring it here on the swing low, or the close, or excuse me, the open of the weekly candle on May the 11th, and of course this testing of this wick on May the 17th. And then of course coming here, but you could see that there really is. I mean, I could play with it here, and I could draw the wicks. I could have it coming down to the wicks here, still really hold the integrity here, and it changes the overall view here by about $100-$200. So yes, it's really anywhere in between here, and there's no. It really is what works best with the overall trend, and this is where it becomes a lot more of an art than it is anything else. I can't tell you to always use the wicks or always use the body, because it just isn't that simple. It really is. It depends on the time frame you're looking at, and it depends on the overall trend. I mean, and again, that might sound like a cop-out answer, and I apologize if it does. It is not meant to be at all. But I mean, you would have to really give me. You'd have to show me the overall. For example, if I look at this, I mean, do I see a trend here? Yeah, I mean, there's a bit of a trend line here, an overall flag pattern here, where I just completely cut the wicks off here, and the bodies work out very, very well. And yes, I would say that's a relevant zone. I would say if we break down below this, that would certainly get my attention. But into the upside here, we also have a pretty relevant zone right here. Again, using the body, this upper swing high here, and then of course these 3 candles here, these 3 daily candles here, kind of looks very, very nice. And of course, it looks like kind of a bearish pennant, if you will. Or you could also argue, as I talked about earlier, if I just extend this out, is it just a larger bullish falling wedge here, that's going to find resolution? Again, it would suggest somewhere between 89 and 8,500. Is that the case? Yeah, it could be. So it really can be a little bit more of an art than just a pure technical thing. And again, I don't mean for that to sound as a cop-out. That's just the case. And you will get more comfortable eyeballing it once you get more comfortable trading. And as far as what am I looking for, a 4-hour open to close or a daily, again, that is also more of an art. In this case, I'm looking at more of a daily to really get confirmation. But might I front run it if we get a 4-hour break on volume? Yeah, I might. It really depends. Kevin Orozco, apologize if I'm saying your name wrong, says, do you have one-on-one mentoring? I don't, man. I apologize. I just do this as a way to give back to the community. I make no money off of this, and every time I'm doing this, I'm not making money trading, and I'm not spending time with my family. So, I mean, yeah, one-on-one mentoring, yeah, I really want to dedicate the time and the effort that it would take to do that properly. I probably not right now anyway. If I start getting a big following and these videos start making some money and I can justify the time and maybe, right now I'm really enjoying just enjoying what I'm doing. But I do appreciate the question. CJ says, awesome, thank you, CJ. Joe says, thank you, Joe. And see, Fortnite Empire says, what website do you use for all these graphs of Bitcoin? TradingView. That's it. All right, guys, I'm going to wrap things there. If you have any comments, questions, suggestions, please remember to Let me know in the comment section below. As always, remember to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell on the right-hand side. And if you do want to support the channel, guys, I'm always very, very grateful for your tips. It does help keep the channel free, and you'll find that you can tip the channel in the description section on below. In any one of our videos, you'll find addresses to tip the channel. And as I said, guys, really, really greatly appreciate your tips. Till next time, guys, I'm going to go ahead and wrap things there. Trade safe. This is Working. Signing out.